The gold standard of a retirement plan for a lot of folks is to have enough income coming in that they don't have to touch their investment portfolio when they retire. If you're retiring with a pension, there's a good chance that that's you. Pensions are an incredible retirement benefit, but having that benefit often creates a whole new set of problems. But have no fear. Not only will I explain it all today, but I'll give you 3 things you can do to counteract this in your own retirement plan. Let's walk through a scenario. Let's say that you're retired and you're married. You don't live extravagantly, and so you need $60,000 a year in net income. That's $5,000 a month going into the checking account every month. You've long since paid off the house, the cars, and so $5K a month does the trick and keeps everything moving. Now, let's say that you have a pension, and the pension's $4,500 a month before taxes, and your spouse has Social Security, and that check is $2,500 a month before taxes. So that's a grand total of $7,000 a month, and after you pay Medicare and a supplement and some taxes, you're netting right around $5,000 a month. Bingo! You've won retirement. Who needs a plan? Who needs an advisor? As the great football coach Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. Let's fill in the rest of the scenario. So you're both 65 and you were smart with your money. So you got $700,000 in your retirement account. Your spouse has $450,000 in theirs, and you guys have about $50,000 cash in the bank. A very normal scenario that someone like me sees all the time. All told, you got liquid assets of $1.2 million. Most of it is tax-deferred money in to-be-taxed retirement accounts. Now that we've got the scoop, we know all about what's going on. Let's start with problem number 1. The first problem is you don't need the money. You can pay the bills with the pension and Social Security. Maybe you take a few thousand here or there for a family vacation. You take out a little bit of money to help out one of the kids. You buy your grandkid their first car, but you're not denting the retirement balances in any meaningful way. And you feel pretty good about this. You're not drawing down your accounts. There's little to no risk of running out of money if the accounts just keep getting larger. And so they do. They keep growing and growing. And then one day you remember required minimum distributions. You're like, oh yeah, that's going to be coming up. When is that again? And you Google a YouTube video and you find out that required minimum distribution started at age 73. They move back to 75 starting in 2033. But for right now, 73. So if you retired at 65, you got 8 years of growth without touching that $1 million+ dollars. Remember, you didn't need it to live on. You didn't want to pull it out. You don't want to have to pay taxes on it. And so what happened there is that your account balance has grown and you've built a bigger tax bill for the future. Now let's say you achieved a nice return. We'll call it 8% average return per year over the 8 years. A good return for sure, not historically unprecedented. If you started with $1,150,000, you left it alone for 8 years, you earned an 8% annual return. The account grows to $2,176,326. Sounds great. The money's growing. The taxes being paid up to this point are minimal because with $4,500 a month in pension income, $2,500 in Social Security, a married couple filing a joint return would be paying around $5,575 in annual federal income tax. That's only a 7% effective tax rate. That's low. We're not worried about the taxes at that point. To this point, the plan has been working. Now here comes the problem. Remember, that first required minimum distribution is now on almost $2.2 million. The first RMD, a hair north of $82,000. What? An $82,000 RMD? That's going to more than triple the tax bill overnight. You went from paying $5,575 in federal income tax to immediately paying $19,212 per year in federal income tax. The amount of income tax went up 344% overnight. It more than tripled, and it only gets worse. The first RMD equals about 3.8% of your balance. And so if you only take the RMD and you earn more than that, the account balance keeps getting larger. And not only that, but the amount of the account that you have to take out keeps getting larger each year. That means a progressively higher and higher RMD. And with that, more and more taxes. So now you've got an ever rising taxable income that you don't actually need, but you're required to take. Here's the second bit of bad news. We're not done yet with higher taxes. At some point, you're going to have to deal with what we call the widow's penalty. The general idea here is that 2 things are true about our tax code. 1, it's progressive, meaning the more you make, the higher the percentage of what you make is paid in taxes. The more you make, the more you owe. And 2, The tax brackets are much worse for a single filer than for someone married who files a joint return. I'm going to pop the brackets up here so you can see for yourself. As you can see, in the scenario we're talking about, prior to the required minimum distributions kicking in, with just the pension and Social Security, as a married couple, you are hanging out in the 12% tax bracket. That's a nice low tax rate, and that's what led to those low tax bills early in retirement. Once the RMDs kick in, however, you jump up to the 22% bracket, which is part of the reason why the tax bill shot up so much. But as they say in infomercials, but wait, there's more. Take a look to the left at that single filer bracket. With pension income of $54,000 a year, a $30,000 per year Social Security check, and a roughly $80,000 RMD, you're now not only in the 24% bracket, but you started paying into that bracket much sooner because you get to the bracket at a much lower income than you did when you were married. What's that translate to? Well, that means that at the time that one of you passes away, even without any new income coming in, the income is still the same. The tax bill goes from what was once $55.75 with no RMD to $19,000 once you had RMDs, all the way to $28,298 when there's only one of you and you're a single filer. Almost $30,000 a year in federal income taxes for money that you don't need to be able to live. You just can't let that happen. And so the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? This is what I refer to as diffusing the tax bomb. Lots of folks, maybe even you watching right now, have saved into pre-tax vehicles for 30, 40 years or longer with the premise that tax rates would be lower in retirement. Here's where that becomes an issue. If you were diligent, you invested good money, you got nice returns, you've built up a huge pot of money that is all going to be taxed at some point. And whether you need the money or not, the time to pay the piper is quickly coming. You've built a big, beautiful tax bomb. And so now what we need to do is disassemble that bomb without blowing things up. This is like a tax MacGyver situation. And so how do we do it? I'm glad that you asked. We're going to talk about it right now. This is where proactive tax planning comes in. This is one of the most valuable things a good advisor can do for you. This is working with your accountant, understanding your tax situation to make a plan that helps you minimize your lifetime tax liability. Well, sometimes the accountant is focused on lowering taxes in one specific year because they're working on your tax return and they're trying to lower the amount due or they're trying to get you a refund. We now need to look at the long run and make sure that you aren't just robbing from tomorrow to pay lower taxes today. After all, that's kind of what has gotten folks into this position to start with. So there's a couple of fixes I'm going to outline for you right now. The first one, if you're not at retirement age and you're very pre-tax heavy, traditional IRAs, traditional 401ks, stop saving into those accounts and start funding Roth money. Unless you're making $250,000+ a year as a couple, if you're all traditional money, and you're approaching retirement, start pushing money to the other side of the ledger. Find out if your employer has a Roth 401k or 403b option. Start moving a portion of your contributions that way. Probably not 100% all at once because it'll crush your take-home pay, but start building up Roth balances. The second one, if you're already retired or you're very, very close, if you've hit that time between retirement and RMD starting date, start looking at Roth conversions. I know that's kind of a YouTube broken record, but we've still got historically low tax rates. You can do a lot of work if you have relatively low income by putting together a Roth conversion strategy over those years. Work with your advisor to get that started ASAP if that sounds like you. Now we're going to get on to two more that you may not have heard of. These are what I refer to as the Qs. First up is a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution. If you're charitably inclined, starting at 70 and a half, so a few years before the RMDs actually hit, you can donate up to $100,000 from your traditional IRA accounts per year directly to a qualifying charity tax-free. Now, to be fair, this is giving the money away, so the benefit doesn't specifically go to you, but if giving to a charity or your church is important, this is a great strategy to employ that can help you lower the tax bills. You can continue this each year, and it can count as part of or all of your RMD once those kick in. This is something an advisor should be working with you on yearly, even before you get to that age, to talk through if the strategy makes sense if you're not intending to use the retirement assets for income. And now on to number 4. This is the second Q and the fourth one, and that's a QLAC. A QLAC is a qualified longevity annuity contract. It's a very specific type of annuity with very specific rules, but it basically allows you to take a chunk of your retirement balance and move it out of the RMD calculation by moving it into an annuity that will pay you an income at a later date. Now, to be fair, this is another version of kicking the can down the road. At some point, the income will come back at a later date, and it has some very specific rules on how you do it. But I find that it's something most folks have never heard of. Most advisors are scared of them, and so for the right person, if you look at the strategy, it may make a lot of sense. So here's the moral of the story. Having great sources of guaranteed retirement income is a huge retirement blessing, but if it's left unchecked, it can become a huge retirement curse. The good news is that it's all within your control with proper tax planning. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about some of the strategies that I just talked about, check out this video right over here.